And you should be able to sign in as well. So everyone should have, you guys completed, if you completed your first sort of pre-homework, you should have signed up for an account. And those are the credentials you'll be using for not just Epic Games Launcher, but for some other assets that Epic sort of has control over and could be useful for you. And so once you're signed in, click on the library tab and you should see what my screen looks like. And for those of you who are still at this stage, again, the folder you need is in the T drive or T space, and it's called 1019C VR 2025. And just copy that again directly onto your C drive of your machine. There are so many students in the class. You guys have like an extra big class this year? Get that? Do you have like an extra big class? How big is your 60? It's not even that big. Are there 20 people? Whatever, that's fine. The more the merrier. So once we get here, is everyone here? Who's not here yet? At this stage. Okay, so make sure you sign in. So on the lower left, actually, when you open up the Games Launcher, I think it just prompts you to sign in, right? And so just sign in, and then you should hit this tab, this library tab. And then you should see the various engines that are installed. There should at least be 5.4 and 5.5 on all of your machines. And we're going to be using 5.4. Okay. And before we get any further, I do want to get to know you guys. So maybe we'll go around and say hello. Tell me your names, where you're from, maybe. I don't know. Like first, something to help me out. Huh? You first? Oh, me first. Okay, fair enough. I thought you volunteered. I was like, oh, great. Like I love this class. No, we can go in order. You can go next. I'll go first. I'm Jason. I also go by Bungjin Kim, which is my Korean name. And I've been teaching this class, I think, for like 6 years, 7 years, which is kind of crazy. And when I first taught this class, it was so much harder because none of the things that are available to us now were available, or that are available to us now were available back then. And so things are getting increasingly easier using the software. And so every year I kind of have to pivot a little bit, but it's all for the better. And eventually it's just going to be so easy for you guys to use this. But it's definitely evolved quite a bit. The class has evolved quite a bit. And I don't know, show of hands, how many of you used Unreal Engine before? Okay. One, right? That's better than usual, right? And so in that regard, it's also improving or maybe gaining a little bit of usage. Who's heard of Unreal Engine? Okay. and have dreamt about the possibilities of Unreal Engine. You guys dream about the possibilities of Unreal Engine, or is it just like, oh, that's what the gaming nerds use? I don't. It's nothing related to architecture. I hope to dispel that because who's done V-Ray rendering before, right? Who's tried to do a V-Ray animation before, right? Why not? Just because you haven't gotten it? Because it takes way too long, right? So this is kind of one of the biggest advantages of Unreal Engine. It's like, it's fast. Like you're gonna get like, one, you'll be able to visualize what you're gonna get before you even get it. But like when you hit that render button in V-Ray, like to do like a 10-second, 30-second animation takes you all night maybe. And then you'll watch it in the morning and you'll be like, oh, that is not what I wanted, right? And so Unreal Engine is going to kind of help you pre-visualize the output, so there are no surprises like that, and it's just so much faster. Anyway, we'll get to all of that. My background is I'm an architect. I graduated from this school. I remember doing this summer class, way shittier back then. We were learning Flash, making Flash animations for websites, Dreamweaver, doing animations using 3ds Max. Has anyone even heard of 3ds Max? Yeah, do you know 3ds Max?
I don't know how to use it.
Does anyone know how to use 3ds Max? Just one? All right, well, it's okay. The other thing about this class is Rhino is much more integrated into Unreal Engine now. So I know you guys all know Rhino, right? You guys are all like slaves to Rhino. You know, anyway, it's good because Rhino totally jives with Unreal Engine. So like I said, I'm an architect. I did exactly what you guys are doing. I have my own practice based in Brooklyn, and it's a very traditional architectural practice, but I use Unreal Engine as part of my workflow. I do 3D and virtual, like VR visualizations. Not even so much for my clients, but for myself. So as I design spaces, I want to see what it's like. Like you're going to have this morbid curiosity. And if you can get into it, why not get into it, right? Why not see it? You can start doing time of day. You can start designing for daylight. Has anyone done like a daylight analysis for their projects, like in a plan or a section, right? But it's all 2D, right? Like you don't really get the sense of it. You don't really get to feel it. You don't get to like change time and experience what that feels like one-to-one. And so like I do think that VR as a design tool is very robust and powerful. It just feels like it's a little bit out of our reach, but you'll find that it's surprisingly really, really easy. And there's so many tools out there. I can bring in the entire city of New York into my scene if I want to see that as a backdrop, right? And so we'll go through how to do a lot of stuff. So anyway, I'm very interested in sort of implementing these technologies as part of my practice and trying to just kind of think new ways of representing architecture. So I think of these as critical representation tools that are like just kind of ripe for the experimentation in school, right? And so this is where I hope you guys will learn some of this stuff and kind of take it somewhere in your studio projects. Whether it's this or Unity, I also use Unity. Unity is a little bit harder to get into just because it requires a lot more coding. I'm not a coder. I just do a lot of copy and pasting, and you get used to where you need to tweak things. But that just is maybe a little bit beyond a 6-week course. But Unreal Engine is nice because it's like kind of like how Grasshopper has a visual scripting language, Unreal also has a visual scripting language, which we'll play around with a little bit. And so our goal here is to just introduce some of these things to you, and then you can carry it as far as you want to, because there's also so much documentation for you to sort of figure out how to do or achieve the thing that you're trying to do. And everything I'm going to show in these sessions are things that I didn't make from scratch. I learned from tutorials. It's kind of sifting through like the bargain bin of like crap. So you do have to sift through a lot of horrible YouTube videos to find like the really good ones. But I'll help you kind of figure out how to search for those things. So anyway, that's a very long. You guys do it fast. All right, here.
My name's Sai, and I'm a first year MR student.
Where are you from? Me? Yeah, Hong Kong. Um, how proficient are you in 3D? Do you like using it? Do you know how to use it? Yeah, I know how to use it. Do you like to render? Okay. All right, good. I won't force you on my others. Next.
I'm Mika, I'm from Toronto, same class as Sai. I've done a bit of work with Unity Engine before,
Okay.
but other than that, basically no experience as well.
Were you making a game or?
Like a VR space.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like more like a simulation.
So you've tried VR. Who's tried VR? Like a Oculus, some kind of Oculus. Okay, that's way more than I've ever had. That's great. Awesome. Did you say Miko?
Nico, and I
Nico.
see you.
Nico. Great.
Sam,
Sam.
from Chicago. I have no experience. I'm barely learned Rhino.
You barely learned Rhino? Okay, that's good. We're not modeling this class. You're just gonna find stuff. That's a bit of a model. So you're in good.
I'm Mellos, I'm from Kosovo. And I've used Unreal Engine for times,
For what?
playing around in a like video games prior to like seeing how it works.
Okay,
Never like actually done it.
okay, good.
For me, it's just being at the bus line and I've never used your stuff. But I was hoping I can actually use this for my business.
For your thesis? Are you MRQ? Okay. So this class is open to MRQs?
I think that would just
Oh, I see. Okay. Are you? Okay. Cool. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And it's great that you want to use it for thesis.
I like to play video games, so I want to know how to focus.
Okay. Awesome. What games do you like?
A lot.
A lot. What's one that what's the last one you played?
Um, That's no Chinese name.
Oh, okay. Do you play on your phone mostly?
No, League of Legends.
League of Nice. That's a big one. That's a big one. Right. We won't be making, moves here, but there is multiplayer functionality, but we might not get into that in this class. But imagine if like there is a scene I could put us all into, but maybe we'll do that for another week. Yes, it is for golf ball. Have you seen it? Okay.
Well,
I just thought Rudolph would be fun to go.
It is. There is one. In fact, it's definitely. We'll do it next week. Great. League of Legends. Are you on a team?
No.
Are you competitive? No. Okay.
No. I was no in that game.
You're a newbie. You're a noob.
I'm prepared in that game.
Yeah.
I play FPS games a lot.
Uh-huh.
Like Valorant.
Uh-huh. Nice. Great.
I'm Lear.
Sorry.
I'm Lear.
Lear. Ear.
I never used the audio. Something maybe to put into my future project.
Okay. Great.
Environment. I work 1 year, and I'm also course assistant with machine learning for an auto class, where I run the tutorials with 3ds Max and Corona.
So you know 3ds Max.
Yeah.
You run tutorials. Awesome.
Yeah. So I learned it when I was in first year taking this course from Daniel.
Oh, from Daniel. Okay. Yeah.
And I thought this was a great opportunity since I'm here to take the other real class as well.
Yeah.
To learn how to help with it.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. 3ds Max is great for video game stuff.
Florida. I don't have any experience but the class is really
I'm sorry?
I don't have any experience with Unreal Engine, but the class is really fun.
Okay. It's going to be really fun, guys. Just so you know, it's going to be awesome.
I'm from Pennsylvania. I also have no real experience, but I like playing games. So I thought it'd be
What game?
Stardew Valley.
I'm sorry.
Stardew Valley.
Very nice.
Oh, I don't know that one. I don't know. Yeah. Start, what, say the name one more time?
Stardew Valley. It's just a farming game.
A farming game?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's relaxing.
Well, I want you guys, I mean, for those of you who do play video games, like think about why you like the games you like, right? Anyway, just a thought. Next,
Enjoy.
Joy.
I'm from Charlotte. And I don't have.
Awesome. What do you want to, what do you hope to learn? Do you play games? Video games? What do you hope to learn?
I just want to learn how to do animation.
Animation? Okay, awesome. We'll definitely do that.
I okay. American for students, no experience with new engine. I do play games.
What game?
I also think about it, but I also enjoy a lot of the games. The one you showed, Bruce, is something I played, and then also the one that left an impression on me is Stanley Parable. It's like an indie game where it's more like philosophical. You just keep waking up and
Oh, okay,
adding different.
nice. Great, thank you.
I'm Zaid. When you gave the lecture that we watched, you said how video games can act as representation tools like the axos or the elevation. So I'm interested how those can be used as diagrams or graphics.
Mhm.
And also, I'm from Jordan. I came from Florida. And I've tried animation on Enscape before.
Mhm.
Like you said, like you hit the, yeah, I get it.
Sucks.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is better.
This is so much better, so much better. It's harder, it's more, but
Right.
it's worth it,
Right.
it's worth it. I hope to prove, anyway. Enscape's, wow, people are, go. Okay, great.
Hello, I'm Meishi, and I'm from China, but I did my undergrad in New York in School of Visual Arts. I did a little bit animation and have some experience in rendering, but I'm interested in like cinematic design, like films. So I
Awesome.
do want to make something related to like film.
Okay, awesome. You've come to the right place. I remember you guys, I was in your review.
Yes.
And yeah, your project, I remember, you should put that in a real. That's wild. It's awesome. I loved it.
I'm from China. I went to Columbia. Actually, you were teaching the class next to mine.
At Barnard. Were you at the undergrad program there? Okay. Which class? Studio class or?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was in systems, but you were teaching environment.
Yeah.
And
Who was teaching that? Taught yours?
then,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then I took a class in undergrad in the CS department that was on video.
Uh-huh.
And it's 3D user interface design. So we made a VR game.
Oh, nice.
So
So you have some Unity experience. Awesome.
Arnold, I'm from Columbia, Montreal.
No experience. Yeah. What do you want? What kind of experience do you want?
I'm actually interested in I think during your presentation, you showed you talked about, like VR spaces with cloud phones.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm very intrigued about like how to use cloud phones and actually.
Yeah.
Drawing.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's just too much
I
data.
tried.
It's too much data. We're not gonna do point clouds, but you certainly can. Maybe you could do some photogrammetry. Have you done any photogrammetry?
No.
Okay. Okay. So it's something a little lighter, but similar on the same vein, like capturing reality
Yes.
and bring it into the game engine. Yeah. Easy. It's so easy. I'll show you guys how.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Theo.
Sorry, say your name.
Theo.
Seu.
Yeah, Daniel. I'm from China and I'm not one student. And when I was in undergrad school, I majored in architecture and then cinema. And I played some games before my favorite game in The Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah. Wait, the original Legend of Zelda?
Yes,
Like any Nintendo Legend?
all of them.
Okay.
All of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why you buy the platforms for that game. Anyway, I'm biased.
I played 64. I played Zelda on 64 with those.
That one I bought the 64 for that game. That was such an awesome game. Actually, that's not true. I bought it for GoldenEye, but that was a better game.
Well, I have no experience in,
Animation, is that what okay, awesome.
actually, I'm in China also pursuing one. I don't have any experience in it, but I did play games like Fall Guys and GTA 5.
Are you excited for GTA 6?
Yeah.
Animated, okay, awesome. Awesome, great. It's so great to meet you guys. So is everyone set on, everyone got to this point? Everyone copied the folder onto the C drive? It's really big, yeah. So it's okay if it's still running, but as long as it's running, we're good. So this class used to be regarded as the hardest class, I think, at some point. Just because there's so much to learn, or there was so much to learn, right? Students were making models, students were maybe UV wrapping models. Then they were bringing it into Unreal Engine. Then they were designing scenes within it. It was a little bit fun. And so this is why I don't want you guys to model. I want you guys to find stuff. Or if you're going to do some modeling, if you know how to model really well, you're more than welcome to do it. But I really want to focus on like what Unreal Engine is capable of in terms of like creating a scene. And it doesn't have to be anything beyond just initial experimentation, right? It doesn't have to be super polished, but I do want you guys to have fun putting a scene together and just sort of like making a very short cinematic sequence, right? And you know, I don't know if you've seen I'll make the distinction between an animation and a cinematic, right? An animation is like, okay, I see things moving, right? A cinematic is like, you got to put on your director's cap a little bit, right? You have to like visually tell a story, right? And you have to sort of leverage everything that's within that environment with which to do that. And I think that has a pretty significant bearing on architecture, right? Because like, yeah, we're designing a building, but we're really designing an experience of a place, integrating ideas, maybe a philosophy behind what the use of that space is actually going to be. We have the ability to characterize that space through the use of materials. And these are all things that we might not have direct access to when we're, you know, making a Rhino model or drawing in 2D. But as we start to integrate it for rendering, whether it's Unreal Engine or V-Ray, you do have to start thinking about those things. And I sort of make the contention that the sooner you do that, the more robust your project is going to be, because it's not an applique that comes at the end. It's you're really trying to design with those things in mind, right? And so I would encourage you not just to learn this, but if you're going to integrate it into your workflow, to try to just bring it into your workflow as early as possible, so that as you're designing your project and iterating through it from Rhino, you can just quickly bring it in, move it back and forth, start visualizing things, start throwing some basic materials onto it. Even if it looks totally shitty, it's okay. But it gives your brain an idea of what that starts to feel like without using that much of your imagination, right? And then you could just build upon that and make it better and better and better. And that's kind of how the workflow in this class is going to work. So let's not worry about the final output. Just do the best you can, but hopefully it's a fun process. And if you're having fun, you're going to try to learn it. And I think that's ultimately my goal with this. Because if you are actually having fun, then you might want to use it again. Okay. All right. So let's, first things first, let's open up 5.4.4. So all you need to do is click on this launch button. And it'll take a little while. It might hiccup. If it stops at like 45% or 90, and it just doesn't seem like it's working, just Control Alt delete that, get rid of it, and then just do it again, and it should open up. And you should have this screen. And I'll wait a moment for you guys to get here. Okay, so once you're here, this is, we basically launched the program. There's no project yet, right? And so we can start with a variety of templates. We can start with a completely blank scene. And they have things set up for, let's say, typical use cases, right? Film, video, live events, architecture. And contrary to what you might think, we're not going to use the architecture template. There's automotive design and simulations, right? We're actually going to use the game template, and we're going to use the third person game template. And we're going to go ahead and check this starter content box. In the future, you might not want to check this box because it just brings over a bunch of assets that takes up space on your computer. But just so we have stuff to kind of play around with, we're going to bring over starter content. But just to cover what some of these are, I know someone mentioned first person shooter. You can start with a first person shooter template if you want to. And obviously these are really geared towards creating a video gaming environment. There's top down, AR, VR, and vehicle. So like Grand Theft Auto is here. Legend of Zelda is here. What's a good top down game?
Stardew.
Yeah, Stardew Valley. Yeah, top down, first person, obviously, and handheld AR. I don't know if there are. Do you guys like Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
Right, would be handheld AR. Right, but we're gonna do third person template because we want like human scale figures. Right, we're just gonna kind of interface with this through um, through the screen. And so one thing I want to make note of are how projects work in Unreal Engine. So a project is comprised of a folder. So it's not like a 3DM file or a .doc. The Unreal project is an entire folder. Without the entire folder, it's not going to run. Even though there is an icon that is specifically for an Unreal project, you need that entire folder. The other thing is these folders can get quite large. And so just be mindful of that. And also just be aware of where you put that folder as well, right? And so I don't know if it's still a problem, but it used to be a problem if the file name starts to get really long. And so what I usually try to do is create a folder directly in the C drive for all of my Unreal Engine projects. And so let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm just going to open up my Windows Explorer. And on my C drive, I'm just going to right click, create a new folder. I'm just going to call it UE5. And that's just going to be where all of my projects live. Right? If I were syncing it to my Dropbox, I would then use that Dropbox folder. Right? Or your OneDrive, whatever the case may be. But for now, let's just set it up on the C drive. So now when we go here, I'm going to click on this Browse for Folder button. I'm going to go to my C. I'm going to pick UE5. I'm going to hit select folder, right? So now it's really shortened up my file path. And then I'm going to give my project a name, right? Whatever you want to name it. I'm going to use Villa Savoie as the example. So I'm just going to call it Orb. Yes. And I'm going to hit create. So again, third person. Why am I standing? Did everyone do the tutorial? Okay, did you do the tutorial or did you watch the tutorial? Who watched the tutorial? Who actually did the tutorial? Thank you. Okay, you can't just watch, because guys, come on. Seriously, you can't just watch. I was gonna send you an email about this, but I was like, oh, I don't want to pester them with all these emails. They're gonna think I'm a dick. So you have to do the tutorials because it's like trying to learn tennis by watching it. You can't. I've tried. You can't. Right? You have to play tennis, right? So you have to follow the steps. Okay. So it's great that you watched it. But you have to do it. So I highly suggest you do it again. But we'll be doing a lot during class too. But especially in the future, if there are more tutorials, it takes much longer. I know that sucks, but that's how you're gonna learn. And hopefully, like you'll find value in that, and it'll be fun. In theory, I hope. All right, so it's gonna take a while to open, as you can see. The first time a project opens, it does take some time to do that. The second time, it'll be faster. Let's see. Okay, so it's compiling shaders. Do you guys all know what a shader is? When someone mentions shader, you guys know what materials are, right? Like when you're making a rendering in V-Ray, you go in and make a V-Ray material and make it look like brick and you apply it to a surface, right? So a shader is the code that's embedded in the material that makes it perform in a certain way, right? So the most basic material is like either a color that you're just sort of painting on a digital surface, or it's an image of, say, brick. And so you have like this little square image of brick, and then the computer takes that square image of brick and it'll either stretch it across the whole surface or tile that brick across the whole surface, right? But the code that's doing that is referred to as a shader, right? And we'll be talking about materials and shaders a little bit more later on when we're dealing with like really dressing up our scene and trying to make it look really nice. But there's a lot of you can get out of the shader level of things. So like, how many of you have modeled brick in Rhino, like brick by brick, one at a time, right? It's crazy, right? And then you hit the render button and it's just like, what's going on? This is like crazy. It's taking so long. It's because there's just so much data, right? And so what we can do is we can create a shader that will really give you that feel of brick, and not just like the image of brick, but you could use things like normal maps, bump maps, ambient occlusion, like these other like they're called maps, but like you're just sort of applying like almost like Photoshop layers onto a surface to make it look more real. So like a normal map will actually will tell the computer how to bounce light off of a surface so that it looks like it has actual geometry when it doesn't, right? But it's so much easier for the computer to render that way as opposed to calculating lighting on each brick, for instance. So there are ways of kind of optimizing your scene through at the shader level. Who's stuck at 45%? Okay, so go ahead and hit Control Delete, and let's see if and just end task. It might work, but sometimes I like to just restart it. So if you go to your library, you should see that the project has already been created. So you can just double click on that.
Yeah, good.
You didn't put all.
So all of this talk about shaders, just to say, don't focus on the details initially, and you can make things more robust as you need to. But we want to start as like basic as possible and add detail only where it's needed. Otherwise, you're doing a lot of work that might not actually benefit you. Okay, but you can see that it does kind of choke through compiling all these shaders to make the scene look so beautiful and robust. So while we're waiting for these things to load, I want to maybe make you aware of some places where you might begin to look for assets. So the asset store associated with Unreal is called Fab. Um, and we can make a direct connection between Unreal and Fab. But if you open up Fab, you can sign in. How do I get rid of this?
Oh,
Right. So you can sign in and start looking for stuff.
oh, so you don't have to-
There's this area here called limited time free. They just like make certain things free. If it's of interest, grab it. Who knows? Maybe someday you're gonna need little dragons in your architectural project. Why not? Just grab it. It's free, right? Or maybe you want like a downtown alley or something. Or you like this dumpster and I need that dumpster. Or I want to figure out how to make neon signs, right? So you can just download it. I already downloaded it. I just go there every month, just grab free stuff, right? And just download it. And you have it in case you need it. But we can see, you know, they have assets for Unity, assets for Unreal Engine. The most, the place where you'll likely look the most is Quixel, where they have like Megascan stuff, Megascans, which are like 3D scanned materials and textures or textures made out of physically scanned elements that are very robust and often free. And you could even download scenes, like full scenes, to like sort of look at how things were set up, right? But like these trees, for instance, like they're very robust, and we'll be using Megascan's trees to uh, um, as part of our the scene that I'm going to be developing as part of the whole Villa Savoie scene, right? The other thing to keep in mind is don't go into your projects without anything in mind. Like we have really great imaginations, but they're not as good as we think they are, right? So we really want to start from reference, right? And if you have a project that exists, there you go. You already have references that you can use. I use PureRef. For reference images. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I don't think it's installed in this. I'm just gonna install it now. And then I'm gonna open my PureRef file that I made for my Villa Savoie scene. Right, it's free. So here's personal, custom amount, sorry, 0. And I'm gonna just download it. So don't pay for it unless you guys feel like it. And then you can go ahead and launch it. Yes, I accept all of your terms. Next, next. And then, you know, at the end, it'll ask you to start PureRef. I'm gonna go ahead and start it. Right. I'm going to right click and open. And in that folder, under the 2025 banner, there should be a PureRef file. If yours hasn't fully loaded, that's fine. You can just.
What did you say?
So on PureRef, you could right click and click open.
The custom amount, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, pay 0. Unless you want to give them money, which is cool. I mean, they make a nice product. I should kick them some change. I always download it for free, but I'm cheap, so what are you gonna do? So download PureRef, and then once you're in PureRef, you can start organizing your reference images. Right? What's nice about PureRef is if you were to do like a Google image search, type Villa Savoie, go to images, and say I really like this image, I can just drag it directly into my PureRef board. I think if I select on the image and get the bigger one is even better still, because then I'll get the larger image. Right? And I could start dragging a bunch of these images in. Let's do the bigger version. Right? I'm just gonna click and delete. Maybe I like this one. And I like this one. And then I can just kind of categorize my images. I can select them. I could hit P or Control P, and it'll just kind of like arrange them for you. And it's just like a very quick way. And then you could like print these out. You can move them around from computer to computer. It's just an easy way to collect images. You could use like Moreau too, but I hate Moreau. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm so sick of Moreau. I just, yeah, this is just a very clean and easy way to just drag images in from the web or from any file. You can just click, grab that image and drag it in, and it usually reads it pretty well. And then if you hit Control N, you can type a little note, like web images. And so you could start to organize your project, or rather organize your references in a way that's very useful to you, right? So like with this scene, I don't know if I'm going to do the interiors, but if I were, I think maybe one of the more interesting places to do it would be the ramp, right? So I found a bunch of images of the ramps and stairs, right? I definitely am doing sorry, I keep doing, if you left click drag, you're gonna move the entire window. If you middle mouse button drag, you're gonna pan within the space. But I definitely want to do the facade, right? And what I'm looking for is not just, okay, I know what Villa Savoie looks like, but I want to know what it looks like, right? Like there are like water stains, like there's like what the window details start to look like. What does the flashing on the windows look like? I see that there's water stains coming down here. I see there's a little scupper on the wall here, right? And all of these little tiny elements, details will really kind of bring out your visualizations. So you want to pay attention to that. You don't want to overdo it either, because then it just looks like a shitty building after a while. But you want to add enough of the shittiness to make it convincing that it's real, right? Sorry to curse so much. I don't know why I'm cursing so much. Right? But like, look at this. Like that's a picture, right? Like that's real, right? And you know, like, oh, like that, how do I get water stains on my? It's easy. It's super easy, right? Other things I might want to do is, oh, I keep doing that. I might want a plan, right? I might want to sort of familiarize myself with what these spaces are, or even somehow incorporate the drawings into it, right? But what's helpful is if you see what the architect was interested in and what the architect drew, like, you know, here's a sketch of Corb of, you know, the house on sort of this landscape. It kind of gives you something to work off of, maybe, especially if it's something that hasn't been built. You might want to like stay in keeping with the spirit of what the designer wanted. So anyway, like then there are landscape elements. So like here, I just wanted to capture all of the shots that had the landscape in the background, right? All of these images are from like a YouTube film I found and just did a bunch of screenshots. And it was like this really beautiful fall day, overcast, which had like a really nice light to it, but like just capture, I wanted, you know, these colors, like the fall colors with green. I thought that looked really nice. And so I just, you know, basically took a bunch of screenshots. You see all of these like leaves on the pathways or under the trees. We can see there are like these gravel walkways. So you're just kind of like looking for like maybe doing like a bit of a deep read of the details that are in the actual site. Right, like grates for drainage, like concrete elements, like curbs and things like that, right? All of these things we can just use to add an additional layer of realism to the scene. Okay, so reference board. Find some images. It doesn't have to be of your project either, because like, oh, I want to do a post-apocalyptic Farnsworth house. Like, do it. Find post-apocalyptic images. Find Farnsworth house images, and figure out how to mash those two up, right? But you can't do it from scratch, right? It's hard to do it from scratch. You can, but it's hard. I don't have as good an imagination as you guys probably, so I definitely need reference material. Okay, so where are we with Unreal Engine? Started yet? Here we go. Right, so we are all in the third person template map. Right, so I'm gonna ask you guys, you don't have to do this down the line, but for the sake of ease, let's go to Windows. I'm gonna load the UE4 Classic layout. Just because everything is just present on the screen. And it's gonna also be easier for you to follow along any older tutorials. If you find like UE4 tutorials that you want to apply to UE5, if you keep this interface, you'll be able to follow along the UE4 tutorial most likely. Okay, hopefully you guys remember from watching the tutorial how to navigate. So it's not like Rhino where you pan and you zoom and you rotate. You right click to rotate, but you use your WASD key to move around in that space. You're kind of like flying as though you're in a video game. So W is forward, S is backwards, D is right, L is left. E is to elevate, and Q is to descend, right? So E for elevate, Q descend, right? And you're basically just kind of flying around. It's a little different and maybe it will take some getting used to. But you'll get it. You'll get the hang of it, right? So just flying around. If you find that your camera is flying around too fast, as you hold down your middle mouse button, you can use your scroll wheel and you can see that little number on the upper right next to the camera icon goes up and down. I can reduce the speed of my camera. So now if I set it to 0.2, you can see my camera is moving really, really slowly, right? If I speed it up to like 6, it's like, whoa, this is way too fast, right? And so depending on the scale of what you're interacting with in the scene, you can just kind of quickly change the speed of the camera. Somewhere between 0 and 1 is good for like this type of scale. And if we hit the play button right off the bat, I don't know if you've already done this, you already have a playable character, right? So, dude, like we're done. Like you just put like your architecture in it and you could walk around it and you're good.
How you run around?
Right? So WASD and your mouse turns the camera, right? So, here's my. Okay, so if we hit escape, you end the game, right? So we can play, right? And escape, you get out of it, right? So how does Unreal Engine know that when I hit start, I want a third person player to come in? Well, first we did use the third person template, right? So by default, it's really giving us that. But I might want to use different templates or play, might have my experience in different ways. Like I might want to use VR, for instance, or I might want to drive around or do first person or something like that, right? So what we can do is if you go to Window and go to World Settings, what this is going to do is give you a little tab here. And you could always override whatever game mode that we're playing, right? But we do have to have the assets for that game mode, which we don't have at the moment, right? The other thing to note is we have something here that's kind of generically called the player start. I can go in and I'm going to increase the size of this. I can scroll down here and find my third person character blueprint. And I can drag that third person character blueprint in, and we can see there's a little pill shaped collider for that character to interact with the environment. There's a camera that's following along. And now if I hit play, right, I can see that character, right? Oh, there she is. But she's just standing there, right? I am possessing the location of my player start, right? If I want to use a character that I added into the scene, I just have to go in to my details for that character and tell Unreal by which player to auto possess, right? So if I start typing auto possess here, it'll take me to this location. So I have my pawn that I added to my scene highlighted. And I could just put player 0. And so now if I hit play, I'm possessing that character. Okay. Is this like totally confusing to you guys? Okay. So a pawn is a thing you could occupy, right? Like you can possess the pawn, right? And the pawn should have built within it functionality to navigate and interact with the world, right? So in this case, Unreal Engine gave us a third-person player with a camera and all of the functionality to respond to our buttons and mouse movements to then occupy our space. And we could always swap out that body with an entirely different body, but still have that same functionality. Or we could also make our own pawns as well, right? But for now, I think the third-person pawn is just fine, right? We can add the bells and whistles later. I might also want to drive around in my scene, right? So if I want to add another template, I can just go to this add button. And all of the things that we saw in the beginning when we created the file or the project, we can go and to this add feature or content pack. And it's going to give me all of those old options that I saw, right? So let's say I don't know if I want to do a third person or first person. I could do both. I could just import the other one, right? If I started with a blank file and I wanted to add a third person character, I could go in and add the third person character, right? So let's go ahead and add the vehicle character. I'm going to click add to project. And so it's going to take a little while. It's telling me I'm missing a plugin, right? So I'm going to go ahead and enable that missing plugin. And then it says a restart is required to apply new settings. So usually when you start a new plugin, you have to restart. So I'm going to go ahead and restart now. It's going to give me the option to save my level. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to let the game restart or let Unreal Engine restart.
Says we started.
Okay, and now you can see it's much faster, right? We've already compiled all our shaders. It's just much faster. And so I have my player character, right? And if you recall, I set this to auto possess.
Show us where that is. Oh, you just look it up.
Yeah, I usually just look it up. It's somewhere down this long exhaustive list. So it's always helpful to just know what you're looking for. But obviously, if you don't know what you're looking for, you just have to scroll and look, right? So I'm going to disable the auto possess, right? Because I don't want to possess that player. And I want to use my vehicle now. I want to drive around. I want GTA. I don't want Zelda anymore. I'm going to go ahead and go to my game mode override. And I'm going to look for the vehicle game mode. And so now when I hit play, whoops, what happened? So it didn't work.
Are you a car? Wait, my car's not.
That's your part.
That you have to.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, actually. That's the.
I fixed this before. Now I can't remember how I did it. So let's try doing it this way.
That's what I can.
It's the POV of the car.
I think so, but I think that what he did, which I correctly did, is he like disabled. It's to. Said it was done this,
The details.
yeah, somewhere it's like game bar.
Oh,
It's an act right
Disabled.
So let's try it this way. That works. Okay. So I'm gonna try to delete this car.
Okay, the whole car.
And see if I can.
I think the camera is,
Okay, so we're all setting it.
It's giving cameras. Oh, I meant to put this. Oh, I'm in a hot.
Oh, I see, okay, you did.
You go into the subfolder and then you.
All right, for some reason, it's not working the way I want to work. We can sort of troubleshoot that. But if we just kind of navigate to where the sports car pawn is, I can go to the vehicle template under blueprints, sports car pawn, and I can just drag the car in. And then I can go into the details of that and auto possess that pawn. And I could hit play, and then now you can see I can drive around. Right. So anyway, so you can see we can like experience our game using different methods. And if I wanted a first person shooter, I would just go ahead and import that.
Or that, yeah, and then that's on,
Right.
I had to do it, to select the issue loop. We gotta look first.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we don't want this. Right? This is like silly. We're serious. We're architects, right? We're gonna make an entirely new scene. So one thing to keep in mind, like this is not like a Rhino file where you open the Rhino file and you're in the Rhino world and that's all that there is, right? In Unreal Engine, like the analogy I often use is like it's like going to a theater with an infinite number of stages, right? So if you imagine, like, I mean, a lot of you play video games, there are like different levels to a video game. In the same way, you can create different stages or levels in making a video game, right? So this happens to be called, and if you look on the upper left, it's called the third person map, right? Maps and levels in video game terminology are interchangeable, right? And so what we want to do is we want to create our own level, and we want to be able to, stage our own scene in our own level. And so what we're going to do is create a new level from scratch, right? And so if we, the other thing to note is this area on the left here within what's called the content browser tab is our Windows Explorer page within Unreal Engine, right? If I go to the actual Windows Explorer, and go to UE5. Here's the project folder that I just created, right? So this entire folder is my project. Even though I go into it and I see there's like this Unreal Engine project file, this is not your project, right? So moving this by itself is going to do nothing. So you have to move the entire folder. But you can see that in my project folder, I have a content folder. If I open my content folder, this is exactly the same as this. Okay, so it's literally Windows Explorer within my Unreal Engine project that I have access to, right? The content folder or the content browser or the content folder is like, if we're using the theater analogy, it's my backstage closet, my storage. I have a bunch of stuff in there, right? If I'm staging Hamlet, I need costumes, I need actors, I need lights, I need swords, I need skulls. I need Ophelias and Hamlets and Mercutio, no, not Mercutio, Mercutio is where I'm gonna do it. We need things, we need assets. And the assets are what lives in that content folder. And they're only in the closet or the content folder until I bring them out into the scene. Right? And when they're in the scene, they exist in this outliner tab. So everything on stage at the moment of the stage I have open appears on this right side. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a new level, right? But it's very, very, very important that you keep your content folder organized in the same way it's important that you keep your closets organized. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to find anything. Okay. And believe me, this starts to fill up pretty quickly with clutter. Because you're going to download all this stuff from the web, you're going to throw it in, it's like, oh, that looks stupid. And then you're going to throw it out, but it's going to stay in your closet, right? You could get it out of your closet, but you're not. It's just going to start building up. So make sure you are organizing things or in whatever way you want, right? But we usually try to keep things within certain categories. So I'm going to right click in my content browser. I'm going to just hit new folder. I'm going to call this maps. Because who knows, I might make a couple of different maps as I go. I'm going to double click on my maps folder, which is empty as it should be. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a level. Remember, levels and maps are interchangeable. Right? So I can do it this way, or I can do it this way, this little plus button, right? So right click, add a level, and I'm going to call this L. There's also a naming convention you do or you don't have to follow. It's up to you. But for certain types of assets, you use like a letter designation. So for a level, you could use L underscore something. For a static mesh, you would use SM underscore something. So if I do that, you'll kind of now understand why I'm doing it. It just helps us organize and find things later, right? So I'm going to do L underscore savoir. What? Savoir. Right? And when I double click on that, it's going to ask me to save my old map, which I can do, and then open up my new map, right? So quick note on saving. This save button up on this upper left corner saves just your map. This save all button in your content browser saves everything in the project that you've changed. Okay. So I'm going to double click on my Villa Savoie map, hit save all of that stuff. Good. And then here's our new scene, and it looks pretty, right? I used to make students read the book of Genesis at this, right? In the beginning, God said, let there be light, right? Like, so how did God design, how did God render us? I don't believe, like, sorry. I don't mean to sort of turn this Judeo-Christian in any way, but like, you know, every religion has a creation story, right? And it's always something like this. So I find that fascinating that we render our scenes, our art scenes in this way too, right? So we have a completely blank scene, right? We don't have lights, we don't have anything. It's just infinite nothingness, right? So, you know, we can add our elements, but what's nice is Unreal Engine kind of built into this thing called an environment light mixer. So I'm going to go to Windows, click on environment light mixer. And, you know, it sort of gives God a shortcut here, right? Let there be light, let there be atmosphere, let there be clouds, let there be fog, right? And as you can see, things are starting to, right? But there's nothing going on, right? So now on our world outliner, we can see that we have a directional light. Do you guys know when you put lights in Rhino, like what a directional light does versus a point light versus a spotlight? Yes, who doesn't know the difference, right? So a directional light is just sort of omnidirect, like unidirectional, right? That light is going to go in that direction that it's pointing, regardless of where you position that light. And that's the light that you use to replicate the sun, because the sun essentially does the same thing because it's so far away, right? A point light emits light 360 degrees out, and a spotlight is like a cone light, right? So anytime you have a directional light in your scene, it's usually representing the sun. So you shouldn't really have more than one directional light because it's like having two suns. Although you might do that. You might want Rembrandt lighting and do like one big directional light and another weaker directional light to sort of lighten the darker spots, right? So you can play around with that, right? After all, we are God in this particular universe. So you could add two suns if you want, but generally speaking, if you want something to sort of render true to life, you'll have one sun in your scene, which is usually one directional light, right? Unreal Engine also has like these sky and atmosphere type assets, right? Like we have an atmosphere that makes our sky look blue and our clouds like to, frolic within it. And so it just like mimics that using these assets because they're generally what we want when we want to render a space. We want it to look like reality. So we have these assets set up. So a skylight, an atmosphere, right? If I turn off the atmosphere, you can see that the blueness of the sky disappears, right? If I turn off my skylight, well, I can't really see it. It doesn't make that much of a difference. And if I turn off my clouds, obviously my clouds disappear, right? And volumetric clouds are a relatively newer asset. And we can go in and start changing certain qualities of our volumetric cloud. So let's see if there is, right, we can change the height of our clouds. We can, where do we change the number of our clouds? It's probably the most dramatic. It doesn't really let us here, right? But it's a basic cloud setup that we can use, right? And we could totally change this out later if you don't like the way it looks. So, we've got our sky, we've got our ground. Like if you start navigating, you can kind of see, we don't have a ground surface yet, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a landscape, right? But before we do just that, we want to kind of understand the context that our project is in. So again, we're doing Villa Savoie, so I might go in here and go to Google Maps. And I want to just take a look at what context we're in here. So Villa Savoie, look at that. Right, I'm going to switch my view to the satellite view. And I think if I hold Alt or Control, right, you can kind of see it's like 3D Google Earth data in my Google Maps. So I can kind of take a look at what my environment looks like. We're sort of surrounded by trees. The house is in the middle. It's kind of like in a very urban setting, right? We don't necessarily need to build a city because as I saw from my reference images, the trees are really like screening the backdrop. So it's kind of a cherry picked project in that way, because then I don't have to build beyond the trees on the exterior, right? But it's, a fairly flat surface. I might add a little bit of undulation just to make it look more real. But now I have something to work off of. I'm going to go ahead and go on this little drop down arrow. I'm in selection mode. This is sort of the base mode that we're in. I'm going to click on this and hit landscape. And it's going to give me this sort of gridded preview of what my landscape looks like, right? I can increase the number of my landscape, make it bigger, make the sizes bigger, make the number of quads bigger. I'm going to make it fairly reasonable. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, right? I can change the size of this. So I might do 31 by 31. Yeah, 31 by 31 is probably fine. And down here, I can click on create to create. I can click on fill world, which would then like to fill the entire world, but I don't need that much landscape, right? The highest quality, the highest res, the highest point or pixel count is not necessarily the best thing. So just be mindful of the bigger is not always better. If I can create this landscape, and now I have some landscape tools, right? So this is essentially a Photoshop brush where you're applying a black or white, depending on whether or not you want to raise or lower the surface, right? So I can go here and start like adding mounds and hills and trees, right? And I can start to create a landscape and say that I'm happy with that. I can go in here and go into this basic, throw in my player start, go to my world settings, set up my third person character, so BP third person game mode. And if I hit play, I can already sort of walk around and run around in the scene that I created and just sort of get like a ground level view of what I'm doing, right? What I'm working on. Right. So, this is very unnatural, obviously, right? If you had a specific location in mind, like you want to replicate a real place, if you find like topography data, right? If you have a topo map and you can recreate that topography in Rhino, you could take that model and this, you could import it directly into Rhino, or you could turn that topography into what's called a height map and use that in your landscape generation. So let's just look for a random height map on Google. So just because I want you to know what it looks like. So if I click on height map and go to images, you can see there are a bunch of these black and white images that start to look like, I don't know, they do look like landscapes, but you can kind of see how the earth sort of carves landscapes through erosion and tectonic movement and things like that, right? And so I can kind of pick a landscape. I can go to right click and save this image. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. Right. So the other thing to keep in mind is there are assets that you might find online before they get into Unreal. You want to keep those organized too, right? Let's call this outside storage, right? And so you just want to make sure you're keeping track of all of these things because you may or may not need to come back to it. And you certainly want to keep things as organized as possible. And so here's my Villa Savoie project. I'm going to right click and create a new folder, and I can call it height map. And then I could save it here, right? And so now I have this nice black and white image, but before I could use it as a height map, I need to convert it to a PNG. That's the one caveat for this. You can use JPEGs for materials, but for height maps, you need to use a PNG. So I'm just going to go to Photoshop. Right? Are you guys doing these steps? Try to do these steps too. Just because in case you need to do it later, it'll help you remember. No, I created the height map folder in the in my C drive folder. So in the 1019 CVR 2025. So this is a sample project. We can open that later. In the 2025 folder, I have my Villa Savoie example. And I created a height maps. And I say that there. Wherever you want it, but just know where they live so that you can access it again, right? You just have to know how you've organized it and where you've kept it. You don't have to do it the way I did it. Oh, I hate signing into this. It has to be a PNG. So I have to, I could download a PNG. I think it has to be a 16-bit PNG.
Goes faster, just go on Google and do a JPEG to a PNG.
Oh, is that, you can do that?
Yeah.
Where do I do that?
Just Google JPEG to PNG
Okay,
and some websites show.
JPEG to PNG. Which one did you use?
Go to all, not images. And then I use the first one
Okay.
and just select the file.
Awesome.
Oh. Yeah, it's on the side of-
Or you can see it.
just put in a separate-
Yeah.
Yeah, does it have to be in content?
And does it have to be content?
No, don't put it in the content folder yet. So convert,
Sure.
right? So then I can download my PNG. I assume it hasn't reduced the resolution. It's probably fine.
No, not.
Um,
How?
so now it's probably in my downloads folder. So I can just drag it in. And so now I have the same file as a PNG. So if we go back to Unreal, right, I'm just gonna scooch over here. And I'm gonna create, actually, I'm just gonna scooch my lens. Whoops.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You exit brush mode
So you can click on
on
this
selection. Okay.
and go to
Yeah,
selection.
yeah,
mode. So I can create as many landscapes as I want. So I'm just gonna move over landscape. I'm gonna create another one. How do I do that? Manage. Alright. New. So if I click on this new button, I can create a new landscape, but this time I actually want to import.
I think it's manage import from file on the right, right? Because there's a height map,
Is there an option for height map?
right?
Oh, right here. Yes, yes. Okay, so import from file, I think allows you to import an actual mesh, but in this case, we want to bring in, thank you, bring in our height map. So we're gonna find that location and select the PNG, and you can start to see the preview of that. It's kind of crazy, right? And so one thing to note is it doesn't have height data in the map. It only knows the highest point and the lowest point. So you'll have to sort of estimate how high that's going to be. So I can go ahead and import. And so now I have this crazy landscape.
Run around.
And what I can do is go back to my selection mode, pick on my second landscape. In the details panel, what I might do is reduce my z-axis scale, right, to like say 10. Or 20. Or 30, right? I can kind of play around with the scale in the z-axis to match like the reality of the high and low points in meters essentially in Unreal. Or I can just estimate what looks good. Right. So here's my kind of landscape. So now I can go ahead and put player start in here. In fact, I might already have a player, so I'm going to delete that and just add a new player start because it's going to sort of throw it onto my landscape surface. So now if I hit play, I'm on my like rocky surface.
I don't know. It worked okay.
Right.
And then I chose this. Are you supposed to render it?
You're supposed to be imported, so if you
Yeah,
scroll
so-
down.
So I have this, I'm like here.
Yes, and then first, and then scale it after you see it.
Okay. So let's work on the flatter landscape because Villa Savoie is not in the mountains, although if you wanted to, you could put them in the put it in the mountains. I'm gonna go back to my landscape. Here I now have this ability to toggle between which landscapes I want to manipulate. So I want my first landscape and I'm gonna like hit shift to kind of lower, right? So just clicking and dragging raises, shift and clicking reduces, right? It's literally black and white information in the same way that the height map is black and white information. So I'm painting black and white height onto a surface. I can do things like add erosion, and it just kind of like adds a little bit more detail, right? If I do flatten, I pick a certain point and whatever that height is, I make everything flat to that point, right? I can smooth things out if it starts to feel a little bit, right? And then I could change my brush size, fall off. I can use like a brush pattern, right? So I can use a brush pattern, right? In this case, it's just a checkerboard, right? But you can see like it's building to that pattern. So if I had like a image of something that I wanted to use as a brush, I can use that as a brush to sculpt my landscape. Obviously, I wouldn't want the checkerboard pattern, but maybe something else. So anyway, I'm going to just go back to my regular brush. And I'm just going to flatten it out. I'm just going to start flat. Right. Because subtlety goes a long way in this particular project, right? So maybe I could leave this part here and that's fine. And we'll see what it looks like. Wherever it is, we're good. I'm gonna go back to my selection mode. And now I need my asset, right? I could build Villa Savoie, but I really don't want to do that. I'm gonna go to the handy internet and I can go to Sketchfab, which is another place to find 3D assets. And see if there is a Villa Savoie, right? And there you go. We got a bunch of them, right? Anything that has this little download button here is free to download, right? And I think I took this one, but any of these would work, right? Some of these you have to pay for. I don't want to pay for that. I might click on this model and just check certain parameters, right? I can kind of roll around and look. This model is free to download. And I just want to make sure my triangle count isn't like ridiculous, right? This has 20,000 triangles, easy. If it has 1 million triangles, don't use it. Okay, if it has over 1 million or like sort of in that range, it's usually done using either photogrammetry or there's just way too much information. It's like they model the bricks, right? It's just too much information. So anything in the $200,000 or $200,000, 200,000 pixel range is or triangle range is okay. Anything less as long as it looks okay, is better, right? So I'm gonna download this model and it's gonna give me some options, right? FBX used to be the only way to get models into game engines. But now you have these other platforms. GLTF is kind of like a universal file type that a lot of programs accept. So we can download the GLTF and we could download the FBX and have both. Right. If you go into that folder that I gave you, um, I have two examples. I can't remember if it was a big one or the small. Right, well, whatever. Let's just do it from scratch. Let's go back to my downloads folder, right? So here's my Villa Savoie. Right? I'm gonna go up a level. I'm gonna create a folder. Call it architecture. Right, so I've got this and this, which I had downloaded. I'm just gonna throw that in there. And then I'm gonna take the one that I just downloaded. It doesn't matter. Do the second one that you did was which one? We did the GLTF first. Just do the GLTF. But it should be the same. Actually, I'll take the bigger file size. Let's do the bigger file size. I don't know why. Feels right. Right. So in my architecture folder, I can just uncompress it. I guess I just open or extract. There it is. And I want to keep it within this folder. And whenever you open a FBX file, you'll get your textures, which are materials. They're not materials, they're just the images that materials and shaders use to apply onto surfaces. And you get the source, which is the model. So let's extract this as well. Why can't I extract this? There it is. Right? So this is like the extra step that you have to take with an FBX file. If I go back here, I don't need this anymore. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to rename this just so I know FBX. And I'm going to go here and grab the other one, which is the GLTF file. I'm going to extract this one here as well. Right. And similarly, I have my my scene file here and my textures. Okay. Whoops. So I want to import this into my scene now. So I downloaded onto my, yeah.
What if the right is, the file is unwrite? You convert it to?
No, you can bring it in a couple of different ways. We'll cover that soon.
That's good.
So I want to create, again, in the interest of keeping everything organized, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it architecture. Right. Other folders I might create might be foliage, like landscaping, right? But we're focused on architecture for now. I'm going to hit add. And now I'm going to import something to my architecture folder. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up my browser. I'm going to find my asset. So again, where you place these things matter, because like now you're just like, oh, where did I save that? Like, right? So make sure it's always in some place that's very accessible. I'm going to bring in my Villa Savoie. Oh, wait, yeah. And then architecture. And then this one is my GLTF, right? So I can just click on this scene and click open. Right? And now I've got like this importer window open. The only thing I'm going to check off here is I do not want collisions to come in with my model. So somewhere down here, it's going to type collision. Right? Import collision? No. You guys know what collisions are in Rhino or in Unreal Engine? Right? So what you see is just a mesh that's visible. It doesn't have any properties. It doesn't have any physics. And so usually what you associate physically with the visual mesh is a collider, but you don't necessarily want the collider to be exactly the same as the mesh. The reason being is the mesh that you want to visibly see is much more refined and might have a lot more detail, whereas the collider can be just dumber, right? And so if you recall when I dragged that third person character in, that character was surrounded by like this pill-shaped volume that was invisible. That's the collider for that particular actor, right? So I see the character moving and running and jumping, but the thing that's actually physically interacting with the environment is that pill. Okay, so everything that I want to be able to sort of interact with needs to have a collision of some sort, right? So we might need a collider for the house eventually, but I might not want Unreal and this import to bring it in. Because what's most likely going to happen is going to kind of shrink wrap my asset and it might not work the way I want it to work, right? So I just want to have better control over that. So you can try importing it with the collisions and see what happens, because it might just be fun. If I don't want my character to ever go inside the house, I might just import the collision. The player will walk towards it and it'll just like not be able to go into it, right? We've all experienced that in the game before, right? Or some invisible wall where you're not supposed to go past a certain point. And then it's like, oh, what's going on? Like my player can't move any further. It's because they put like an invisible wall or a collider to prevent that character from going. And so in this case, I'm not going to import collisions just in case I want to be able to go inside the house. In which case, then I'll make my own colliders to use to interact with my character. So I'm going to uncheck that, click import. And so now I've got a shit ton of things inside of my architecture folder, right? So what I may want to do is hit Control A. Actually, I want to create a new folder. Let's call it Savoie. Whoops. Rename. Right. This is obviously made in Sketchfab because it's got like that Sketchfab person in it. Not Sketchfab, SketchUp. And then I'm just going to drag all of these things into that folder. And I'm just going to select move, not copy. Right. So now I have in my architecture folder, Villa Savoie. Right. I'm going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call this Farnsworth. And let's just bring in the Farnsworth house as well. I downloaded it. Farnsworth. Right. And then I'm going to add same thing. In that folder that you guys all downloaded is also the Farnsworth house. So I'm going to grab that as well. Who knows? Maybe I want to change my project later. Same thing. In fact, now I think the collisions won't, it'll just remember what you did last time. Right? Let's just import collisions for this. So I'm going to check the box. and hit import. And so now all of my Farnsworth assets are in the Farnsworth folder. And all of my Villa Savoie assets are in my Villa Savoie folder. Right? I'm gonna,
No, I don't know where the code, is it not there? Do you have a search bar? Yeah, just type it in.
if you guys are importing the FBX, it's gonna be it's gonna look a little different. So I'm gonna put Savoie FBX. And let's import the FBX folder or the FBX asset. So let's go back to Savoie, architecture, FBX, go to source. Somewhere. Right, these are all texture files. I just want this FBX file. And then hit open. So if I'm importing an FBX, the dialog is going to be a little bit different. But somewhere here, you see where it says generate missing collision. Yeah, you might want to uncheck that if you don't want collision. Right. If you have a super large, so if you did want that 2 million, I wanted to say dollars, 2 million triangle asset, you can click on build nanite. That just it's a additional functionality that Unreal offers that takes very dense meshes and simplifies them when you're not close to them. But we'll talk about that later on if we need to. So I'm going to click import. And so similarly, we get a bunch of stuff, right? We can see there are a bunch of textures, materials, and then static meshes.
These are the FBXs, all the textures.
The FBX is a single file, but within that single file are a bunch of static meshes. So like had I grouped them all into one, it would all come in as. In this case, there are a bunch of pieces. Like we can see there's like a ramp here, columns here, walls here, and things like that, right? Here's like, if I double click on it, we can like look at the different components of that particular static mesh, right?
So whenever it imports as like a folder, it just dumps all of the assets.
Yeah, so you might.
Yeah, so that's why you have to put it in a folder.
Yeah. If the FBX were grouped already, like so if I were modeling this in whether it's SketchUp or 3ds Max, I might group all of that in 3ds Max so that when I brought it into Unreal, it would just be one thing.
I see. I have a question. So
Yeah.
after I made those two folders.
Yeah.
What's the next step to that?
So to import, so in your folder, you want to click on this add button and import to that folder, and then find the asset. So in your case, you just need the.
Oh, so I already have the everything.
Did you already? Yeah. If you have a bunch of stuff, you have it, right? So this is what happens when you download free stuff online. It's kind of messy, right? But we'll work with it. It's okay. You just have to know what to sort of shuffle through, and we'll be fine, right? So let's get I'm gonna use a GLTF for now. I think it's the same thing, but you guys can sort of decide that. I want to, I only want my static meshes. So if I click on this little drop down, like triangular dash thingy, I can sort things just by static mesh. Right? I don't need the character, but I want everything else. So I can sort of shift click and highlight everything. And I want to then drag my asset in. And you can see now it's all in my world outline, right? Everything's highlighted. What I might want to do at this point is right click or rather just click on this new folder button. And it's going to take everything that I have highlighted and it's going to put it in a folder, right? And even more, I could go and group this together, right? But if it's in a folder, it's kind of grouped in that folder. I'd be able to easily select those assets, right? I'm gonna rename, right click, edit, rename this folder. And I'm gonna call this wa. Right? And let's just do a little Mies versus Corb. And I'm gonna go ahead and select, right? I still have my filter on. Right? So the filter is gonna stay on until you turn it off. So don't freak out. I'm gonna take my Farnsworth assets. Let's just do a little bit of a Mies versus Corb. Right, and I want to do the same thing here. I'm going to create a folder by clicking on this plus icon, plus folder icon, and then I can right click and group that, group these assets. So that when I select them, I'm selecting all of them. And you can tell that it's a group with this little green box that's around it. Right, let me, yeah, you can always ungroup. So in my outliner, I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna right click and rename this Farnsworth. I know so many of you are gonna have new folder 1, new folder 2, new folder 3, new folder 4. Like it's gonna be really hard. Life's gonna be really hard for you later. So just try to maintain order as long as you can. At a certain point, you just fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. Like, but for now, just try to maintain as much order as possible. All right. I don't know why I keep swearing. You bring it out in me. Where's my player start? It's in the mountain. So I'm just gonna delete that and drag a new one here. And I'm gonna hit play. And oh, look, here I am.
This is collisions off.
So this is collisions off, right? So I go right through it, right? And then if I go to my Farnsworth house, this one should have collisions on. So now I can't go inside. Right?
And you, sure, you can make the doors be.
Yeah. You can make doors open and close and do whatever you want to, right?
That's inside is fine.
I can also drive around on it.
Oh, geez, help you add the other game mode? If it's not there already.
How do you add
Like how do I add the car?
So did you add the template when we did it
That's
together?
the,
Okay.
I don't remember.
So if you click on this add button,
Okay.
and if you go to feature and content pack,
Perfect.
you
Okay,
can select the vehicle.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Right? So, you know, the whole thing you learn about Villa Savoie is how you drive your car around the thing. So let's see if we can do that. Yeah, it works.
I've done that before.
There's enough space. In the real one, in the real place?
Yep.
Really?
That car.
With this car?
Yeah.
Awesome. It kind of works. I'd be afraid of hitting these cones. I mean, the pilotis, if you take a couple of them out, I'm sure. Yeah.
The builder.
So you have to grab all of these assets. And then right click. In this case, I'm going to ungroup them. Right? So these are all individual assets, right? And if I hit F, so F, if you highlight anything in your world outliner and you hit F, you sort of focus to that. Right? So if I select this and hit F, my camera is just going to sort of center that in, right? So if I lost something, I can just kind of find it in my world outliner and hit F. But you can see like now everything is ungrouped here. The other thing you could do is if you go to your show and you show your collisions, these purple lines indicate where the colliders are. So that's where your character is going to then get blocked. Right, so I'm going to turn off my collisions. Right, and I'm going to regroup this. I don't, it doesn't matter. I can leave it under. But there's like a long list. So I am going to compress that folder. All right, now a gridded landscape is all great and fun, but that, no, like, no good, right? What I want to do is create a landscape material that's going to work for me. Now, how do we define that? Well, I can go back to my reference board. I can start to think about, okay, I need grass, I need gravel, maybe I need dirt, right? I'm just talking about the landscape, right? I know I need other materials like, you know, paving stones and all that other stuff, right? So, and then the other thing I might do, just to make my life easier, is to take a,
So.
right? So in the savoir folder that you guys downloaded, there's a screenshot of Google Maps, basically. Right? And so what I want to do is I want to use, and I oriented it architectural north, building north up, so that I can bring it into Unreal and start to use this to like paint my landscape essentially with the textures that are needed, right? So it sort of gives me the gravel, the grass, the location of the trees. There's like this little piece of furniture here. And so I have this asset that I can bring in. I guess I do need to sign into Photoshop here. Actually, I don't. I'm gonna just go in. I'm gonna right click on this and go to properties. This is gonna tell me, I think, my image dimension, right? This is gonna give me the proportions of my, or aspect ratio of my image, right? So I'm gonna write that down, right? So 1903 by 1197. I'm gonna go into my project. I'm gonna grab a plane. In my architecture folder, in my savoir folder, I'm gonna get rid of this filter, by the way. How do I do that? I'm gonna go here and reset filters. I'm just gonna create a folder in here. Because this only pertains to Villa Savoie, but I'm just gonna put, what would I put? Google Map. Right. So I created a folder called Google Map. I'm gonna go to where that asset is. And this time I'm just gonna drag it in. You could just sort of drag in assets as well. I don't recommend you do that for big things like FBXs, just because something might not go right. But for like an image, certain things you might just be able to drag and drop into your scene. Right. So now I have a texture, right? A texture is just an image. And here it is. And I can just drag a texture onto my surface. Can I? Yes. No, is it not letting me? There you go. And it's just going to automatically create a material for me. And you can see that my map is now in that scene. Right? The problem is it's square. Right? I had a rectangular image that's then been compressed into the square, which is why I wrote down the aspect ratio, because now my scale, I know in my X orientation, I need 1903. And in my Y, I need 1197. And it's quite large. Right? But now it's Now it's at the appropriate aspect ratio. And if I click on this, it didn't work last time I tried it. And let's see if it works now. Something kind of buggy about this. Whatever I set this to, in theory, hit F again, it'll stay proportionally accurate. So again, I clicked on this lock button after I scaled it to the correct aspect ratio. And now if I scale it again, it's going to stay proportionally accurate. And so I'm going to go to my top view. And then I don't want wireframe. I want this to be lit. If I hit G, I guess I can't do it in top mode. What is this? Is this my player start? It's my skylight. Oh, all these things are in my way. So I'm just going to move these things out of the way. Where is my?
Oh, you're in the mode.
Oh, there you go. Right. So when I have something selected, I can switch between move, rotate, and scale up here. I can also use W, E, and R to toggle between those. So I can scale this up. See, this is what happened last time too, right? It starts to get square again. It doesn't make any sense. Let me try scaling it here. But when I do it here, it stays accurate. So I'm just gonna do that, right? My orientation is wrong, so I'm gonna rotate. So the other thing to note is these little blue, this blue designation means that the snaps are on. So if I click on this little angle icon and make it blue, I'm snapping to every 10 degrees. And so I want to rotate this 90 degrees. And so I'm going to keep that snap on. If I had that snap off, I can freely rotate. Same for move and scale, right? I'm going to move my map down below my house, right? And then I'm just going to keep scaling this up and try to just visually match.
If you go to the scale, thing at the top,
Here?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then click the number,
This number?
yeah, and then go to preserve non-uniform scale.
Oh, okay.
And then that saves.
Awesome. Either way, I still have to track. Thank you so much for that. I had no idea how to do that. Sorry.
You see that bubble?
You can move it by just changing these numbers,
Oh,
So you should go there and then do this.
right? So basically what I'm trying to do is
this.
kind of align my house with my image. It needs to be a little bit bigger. Right, that's pretty close. I'm gonna go back to perspective. Right. So now I'm just using this to know where things might need to go. Right.
Command to like put everything on the ground.
There is. I think it's like if you have something, so let's try it. I'm gonna grab this cube and lift it up. I think if you have it selected and do page, no. End? Yeah, hit end and it'll drop it to the surface. Okay. All right, so still it doesn't solve my landscape problem. What time is it? All right, we're gonna run out of time. All right, so I want a landscape material. I can create a landscape material from scratch, but who wants to do that? We're gonna find a landscape material that we got off of one of the a different asset. And so in the 2025 folder, there's a landscape folder. if you open this project up, you can just double click on this. And I think it'll open another instance of Unreal Engine. We're in a little danger of crashing, so you can save your project at this time. So we don't lose anything, and it doesn't auto save, so I don't think it auto saves well anyway. So just make sure you continue to save.
How to save everything?
Save all. Did you crash?
So what else?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can drag it over and
Yeah, no. Shift up.
so I'm opening this other Sensei landscape. There's a person on YouTube called Unreal Sensei who does like a bunch of tutorials. They're pretty good. You can check those out. But anyway, this person does a bunch of tutorials and like offers free assets to use. And so this is where I got that asset.
What is that folder thing?
So it's in the 2025 in a folder called landscape.
Oh,
Right? So in the landscape folders, in the landscape folder, there is a UE5 landscape. And then the UE5 landscape folder within that is where you'll find your Unreal. That's your Unreal folder. If you double click on this icon, you'll open Unreal. Right? But again, it's the folder is the entire project. So yes, open it. So while that opens, everyone, let's open Epic Games Launcher.
For my folder, I don't have the Unreal Engine.
Yeah. Oh wait. Did you copy the whole thing?
Wait. That's the only.
Oh, see, that's what I want.
That's like recycling.
Try to do right and hang on one second.
I think you
Yeah,
have to input
right click and
the
see if you can
output.
open with Unreal.
Oh, shit, yeah, God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God of War, come on.
I feel like it's sort of changed the.
I don't know, that's the only new God game I've
And then go to choose another app.
I want mine to be like an axo scrolling
And then you gotta find
Why do you have that?
choose an app for PC.
Any,
Go to C drive,
what's that one video game is that you're playing?
program files,
It's like Greek, Hades.
Hades.
Epics,
I don't
Epic
know.
Games.
It's really fun.
It's like an elevation. You watch it.
It's an accent.
Is it?
Go to UE5.
Or ISO, I guess.
Engine.
Hades?
Hades.
Let's see, that's sick.
I guess League of Legends. And Joe.
No.
Sensei landscape is.
Does yours say PNG?
There's two,
The-
there's one PNG and one Unreal.
Yeah.
I
You
have
don't
the
have
Unreal.
Can you copy it again? Just copy that folder. Don't copy the entire folder. From the temporary drive.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe it didn't copy. So it's under 1020, 1019C and do the 2025. That one, and then escape. Just copy that whole folder. Eight from
And the original folder, it's the same.
And it happened again?
Like in the temp space, it's not same. It's not the,
It doesn't show the Unreal icon?
yeah, it isn't in the temp space.
Yeah. But you have to copy it onto your drive. Don't open it from the temp space.
But
So you would have to right click and open with Unreal Engine. So you'll find it in the C program folders. So once this opens, you'll see there's like a example landscape material here, right? And so if we were to go to landscape, and if I want to start sculpting this, let's make my brush.
It keeps the texture where it is.
So it'll keep the texture where it is. And what's nice about this is if you have like a vertical surface, it'll automatically turn it
Just
into
like-
rock.
It's like Lumbia.
Is that how it works?
Oh, wow.
And so these are kind of smarter assets that start to recognize that you might want vertical surfaces to look a certain way and more horizontal surfaces to look a certain way. So we're gonna use this material. But we could also just paint textures as well. So if on my grass, I want rock, right? So I can start changing the appearance of my landscape.
How does that work with like intellectual property though? Like,
It's all free.
it's all free.
Yeah. Don't try to sell your projects and make it fun.
Basically,
I'm sure the terms of use don't allow you to do that, but no one's really keeping track.
How does Professor Williams feel about that next gen?
Professor Nguyen?
I don't know.
It's just, it's really just.
to academic integrity.
In signal. What's the word?
I paste the folder in the
Integration.
Oh, yeah, it's
Have
Lumbia does the same thing.
this is the even
Really?
changing of the font.
Can you just find
No,
those
I'm
two
sure everybody
assets
does it, I just mean like, at a certain point.
I think you meant to be open.
in the temp space?
Well, I mean, it's not
Just
like this.
take those two and copy only those the missing.
Yeah, but then we follow the route.
There's a limit, height limit.
This file.
Oh, the one in temp space, this is the one.
Did somebody take away from the temp? Here, let me try to copy it back.
Oh, if someone deletes it on the pen, it's right.
Yeah, okay, so let's try.
I know your earth mother.
Also,
You're your-
I wonder if we can make one of the rocks. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you have to.
Right out.
That one can be stayed.
I think because there's no color.
I think I have to do this.
No, it's there.
Whoa. Rhino.
Yeah. Yeah. My way.
Yeah, mine has it from temp space.
Alpha brush. No, I still don't have. Oh, this just saw
How can you not have it?
it is original. I was very. This program is so advanced.
Um,
Yes.
I'm gonna email it to you.
Oh, okay. So this
No fair.
Always a danger. Now it's recorded too. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Huh? It's embarrassing. Don't look at my email. Okay, so in our landscape project, I'm gonna go to my example, maps, material, And I'm gonna steal these three. Borrow. Okay, migrate. We call it migrating. When we move an asset from one project to another, it's called migrating. So we're gonna right click on it. Asset actions, migrate. Legal, it's totally legal. These are documented assets, right? It's gonna ask you to save, sure. And then it's gonna give us, okay, with these three assets, you actually need all of these things to come along, right? So it's gonna take all of those dependencies, include them, and you click OK. And then we need to find the content folder. So very important, the content folder of the project you want it to go into. All right, so in my C drive, I created a UE5. Here's my core VS, right? And there's my content folder. I highlight that. And then I select folder and then it goes. Legal migration.
Wait, what do you press once you highlight that?
Select folder. Oh wait, what do you press when you highlight the
Yeah, once
assets?
you highlight the assets.
Okay. Why did they disappear? Right click, asset actions, migrate. They should say legally migrate. I'll put a note. Okay. And so now I don't know if I need to restart. Right, but it's already here. Right, and you can see there are two materials. One called M landscape and another called M landscape nanite. Okay, for now, we're gonna eventually use the nanite one, so everyone relax, don't worry. But we're gonna start with just the regular one, the mountain image or the mountain material. So all I need to do to apply that material is really just, I think I can select my landscape. I could probably just drag it onto it too, but I'm gonna scroll down here where there's a little landscape material slot that's empty, which is why my material looks gridded. I'm gonna drag that in. And then it's gonna look weird. Don't worry about it. We'll figure this out. I don't know, it's kind of a weird bug in Unreal Engine. But if we go into our landscape material, I'm gonna hit save. And then I'm gonna go into my landscape actor, go into paint. I think what I just need to do is do. Okay. All right, is everyone here? All right, where are we stuck?
Just.
You're at the ball.
Black.
Oh, no, that's fine. You're there.
Okay.
Everyone have a black landscape?
No. I just migrated it.
So now in the
Just give it
example
some- yeah.
folder.
I'm stuck here. I'm stuck here.
Why would you call me?
I know.
Yeah, this is-
Maybe I need to add a word.
Oh, no, you're here. You can either drag it or I like to.
I'm asking you.
Scroll down.
I suck at basketball, but I touched it.
Drag this.
My far. I can't do it.
All right, everyone good? Yes.
I might. Yeah, maybe that's like something.
That's the most satisfaction I can get.
A little fast. Wait,
Oh, you just lost my card of time.
So,
Did you migrate?
Of course, no, I just opened.
That was great. That was great.
It's like this next to me.
Right. Wait, have you seen that? Wait, okay.
The chips.
YouTube, crash, simulate. It's like compilations of just like
That's why.
What is that?
stupid ass.
This is what you're gonna make.
Crash. Where it's just like.
Unreal.
Why is it that if the crash is like, oh, it's a period?
Material here.
There's ones where it's like.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
There you go.
It's okay. I give up. I give up. I'm just watching this now.
Unreal. Wait,
Right.
I think
Material.
I wanted to say reinforcement.
I give up.
No, where's the-
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, you can see the inside. Oh, wait, why can you be inside while it crashes?
Probably.
Oh, wait, this is what I was gonna. Oh, wait,
I like.
It's so dumb. Dude, why are we doing it in the water?
Oh, there's fish, wow, there's no care, but it's just.
Well, let's see that.
How is the upper door?
Am I landscape?
There's one where it's like semi truck versus 1,000 speed bumps.
That's unreal.
Say it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Need to rot it out.
You've seen my thing.
Order speed bumps here. There
There
we go. We found it. Crash move.
Okay, are we mostly there? Because I gotta keep going. So now I'm going to go into my landscape mode. I want to make sure if I have two landscapes, I'm picking the correct one, right? Which is my first landscape.
So good.
I'm gonna click on this plus button and type or select weight blended layer. And it's gonna ask me to put something someplace. I'm just gonna go to my landscape and just put it in materials. And hit save. And what should happen is then it's gonna change my black landscape into just all ground.
Sorry, how did you get the pop-up window from?
Click the plus button.
Click the plus button right here and weight blended layer. And save the thing that it's going to save in like a folder, like you'll never access it again, so it doesn't really matter, but I put it in this materials folder. And you can see this is the asset that it created. Right, so if I go into selection mode again, right, I want to just turn off my plane, right? And so we have some grass here, but I want gravel too, right? I need some gravel. You know, I could totally use this surface as well, but I don't like it. So I'm just gonna go based on the Google Maps image. This material doesn't come with gravel. But if I go into the example material, so again, we're using this material that's in the example folder. So again, we just have to keep track of this. I know it's confusing. If I double click on that, I open what's called a material instance. And if I open these up, I can start to see the various textures, right? Material B is stone. Material C is more grass, different kind of grass, right? So I can start like changing the layers to look differently if I want to, right? So I need a gravel material, gravel layer. And so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go into fab. Right? And I'm gonna bring in certain things, right? I'm gonna go and let's go back. Right? So I'm at Quixel. I can type mega scans. And I really want materials and textures. So I'm gonna open this up. I want nature and terrain. No, that's not right. Let's just go to materials and textures. Let's try Quixel instead. And go to nature and terrain. Maybe they don't give them away anymore. Let's just look for gravel. And let's see if we can find something for free.
That made it the best thing.
They're stuck in the city. That's terrible.
Was that just drag? Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So make sure you have products highlighted, all products. Type Quixel in the search bar, and then click on gravel. And select free. And I've got some stuff saved, but what do you guys see? Do you see anything that's like shoreline, beach rocks? Yeah, which is kind of the closest. Is it free? Okay, so highlight that. And you can hit download. And it's gonna bring in these textures. Hang on a second. Is there something that says save to my library? Yeah, add to my libraries. So if you add it to your library, and then you go to your if you add it to your library, does it say import to project?
Then view to view it.
So click view in my library.
It says view in my.
So go to all right, let's do it a different way. What time is it? I'm gonna run out of time.
Interesting.
Oh, that's- there. For why not? Why? I tried the other one.
Okay,
But that material that, no, the previous one, go to the landscape or like. On your, browser, select the file housing, go to where you're import it to landscape. Oh, Jason,
Yeah,
you can access the file from the Topnet browser and I think it works.
is it in there?
Yeah,
Okay, I thought you
you
had
just
to,
have to find it in there.
so in the content browser, oh, here,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so I thought this, okay, you used to have to import this plugin before. But yeah, so if you click on this fab folder. You should be able to then, if you put it in your library. Maybe you have to sign in.
Oh, library is over.
So sign in.
So. I think that might be it. But I want to say, but that's sure. I don't know if it's the same.
So once you're signed in. You should be able to access your library somewhere,
The library is there, yeah.
right here. And then if you go to materials and textures. Nature and terrain. Gravel. You should be able to see that. I don't know why.
I have it.
You have it? Okay. So then you could import it into your scene, yeah? Import it into your project. Yeah.
So that's for the.
I know you make that. I know you make that yourself.
Did you, so go into selection mode, highlight your. Scroll, go to your details tab, not the world. So you put a different material. You need to drag this material. And then go back to your material or landscape. And then here you want to click on the plus. The plus on the right, yeah. Week1. And then save that to landscape.
Get the landscape texture out there.
Okay.
On your black.
That's what's gonna save. And then it's gonna change it to grass. Okay, so can you guys import your gravel material?
We have to click import, yeah.
Right, so I'm just gonna look for gravel. What was it, mega scans?
It's just sorry, it comes out.
Materials and textures, nature and terrain, gravel. Oh wait, this is my library. I don't want to be in my library. Mega.
Yes, she was like, send it back in addition today. My, did you get?
Yeah, she asked me to send it back, but she asked first.
Yeah, same. So we-
I don't have those things.
You have canvas here.
For some reason, it didn't submit it.
Right, so whichever gravel you like. If you even want gravel, you can pick whatever material you
I
want to,
have that, I have.
right? So I'm gonna add to project. And now we can see in my mega
It's
scans,
not your.
shoreline beach rocks, I have my material and I have my textures. Okay, did everyone import their materials in? Okay. So now if I go back to my landscape material. Right? And then I look in my shoreline beach rocks. I can say, I don't need snow, or maybe I'll keep snow. Let's go to E. What's in here? There's really nothing in E. So I can drag my textures in here. So here's my diffuse texture. Let's turn it on. Here's my diffuse texture. Here's my normal. And for I want to highlight this mask E and drag this into the middle one. Okay. So again, I'm in the gravel texture that I downloaded. I want to access these textures, right? So I have a material, but I really just want these textures because I want to use these textures in the landscape material that I'm using. So I decided to use the E layer of that landscape material. And I'm dragging my diffuse texture. If you don't know what diffuse means, it's okay. My normal texture, which is like the purpley one, I want to check mask E and check this box and highlight this mask E and bring in this orm texture. Okay, we'll just run through the steps and I'll explain further down the line. When we talk about materials, I know it's a little bit confusing, but what this allows us to do now is I can close this. I'm going to ungroup. I'm going to ungroup my Villa Savoie. I just want to get rid of this thing. So I'm going to highlight this thing and delete it. I'm going to zoom. Right. I think what I might do though is regroup it. And then move it so it's intersecting with the ground. And then I can go into my landscape mode and in paint, I'm going to do the same thing here with my layer E, which I just created. Weight blend layer. Just put it in the same location. I think I put it in landscape materials. Hit save. And now I can highlight this. And I can change my brush size. Right. I actually want to make the brush really small. Brush fall off is like feathering, right? Same as in Photoshop, right? I want 0 fall off in this case. And I'm just going to maximize my tool strength to 1. Right. And I need to make my brush even smaller. Right. Because I just want to try to kind of paint that area. Right. So now I'm just kind of painting this area with gravel. Right. You can kind of see that my texture is repeated. Can you guys see that pattern? So if I go into my landscape material, so what's nice about this, if we open that material instance again.
Jason, did you do anything else besides the 3 E materials?
No. I just added the masks in E. Right. So what's nice about this material, it does have some additional functionality that allows it to break up these repeated patterns. And it's referred to as cell bomb. So I'm going to check this and check this. And you can see it kind of breaks up that pattern, so you don't see it. It's a little bit more taxing, but it works. Right, so now if I open up my plane, I can just kind of paint to try to match that.
Oh, there's a switch.
Right. And it, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but get as close as you want to get it. Yeah.
I selected this paintbrush. I tried to paint it, but later.
So you have to hit the plus button and do the weight blended layer. Weight blended. Yeah,
Yes.
and then save it to that same landscape folder where you saved the other one.
It's like
So now if you highlight that, and then you can brush and paint it. Okay.
So how to change the brush size?
So that's so if you scroll up, brush
Oh,
and fall off and things like that, you'll have to change. Right? So we're just kind of painting it. If you did too much, you could shift to erase what you just did. Right? So again, we're just like making it better, right? The grass itself is kind of not great. If I need visual reference again, somewhere around here.
it's on. Wait, sorry.
So as you work on this, you also want to just keep looking back at your reference board as well, right? So, you know, there's this image. This image kind of gives you a sense of the texture. I look on this image, I can see there's like some concrete here, so I might want to do something about that.
Jason.
Yeah.
An issue if you get lost.
If you get lost in the world, so if you highlight like your player start, hit F,
Right.
that'll at least take you to where your player start is. Right, so it's looking a little bit better. If I want to change the scale of my gravel, so at this point, what I might want to do, I'm gonna just dock this here. I want a scale figure, so I'm gonna go to my third person blueprint and I can just grab my person here.
Maybe try this.
I'm gonna go back to my selection mode and move my character.
Then this one is highlighted and then.
If I hit end, that's not really working,
Just put this one.
right? Because then I can really compare the scale of my texture to a human scale figure. And so if I wanted to adjust the scale of my,
No, that's because you just made it. And you can start function. I think you cannot see this on the music.
of this particular material, I can go and well, for one, I could change the brightness. If it's looking too bright, I can darken it up. This is like Photoshop, right? Increase or decrease the contrast. I can do the same for the grass. I think if I want to change the tiling, where would it be? Why am I not seeing this? I can apply a tint to my material as well. So if I want to make purple rocks or something like that, you can. Why? I'm not. I could change the tiling in theory of it as well, so I can make my gravel appear bigger or smaller, but I'm not seeing that at the moment. I'll come back to that. This it? Yeah, okay. If I highlight size and start reducing this number, I can make my rocks appear bigger or smaller. So I'm basically changing the size the texture appears at, right? And if I click on this little icon, it always takes it back to the default value. I might have to save this in order for the thing to register, or yeah, for some reason it didn't update. But this is at 1. So I want to compare it to my character. If it feels like I can artificially make it bigger just to give it some more appearance or a visual impact on my scene. So I can start to manipulate these things depending on what I'm after. Okay. Right. I don't like this darkness of it. I'm going to go back. Where is that material? I'm going to just turn off albedo contrast. Or, sorry, it was brightness. Oh, wait, sorry, that was the wrong one. That was layer E. I want my brightness back to 1. Okay. So other things I could do in Megascans, I can look for some 3D assets. Let's do maybe buildings and architecture. No. Streets and construction. So like that concrete edging, I might want to use one of these assets for. Let's take this concrete curb. I'm going to add this to project. And so now in my fab folder here, I have this asset which I can drag. And I can start locating that. I'm going to turn off my snaps. I might just stretch this out a little bit. And if I hit Alt and drag, I can just copy this over and over again. Maybe with this one, I'll rotate this by 180 degrees. And then I'll just grab all 3 of them and just hit Alt and drag again. Right. To just sort of add some of the elements that, right? And I'm just going to look for some creature. You can model it on your own, but it's not going to look at it. Just try to find assets. The object is to model as little as possible. Okay. So look, this is not good yet, right? But it's a start, and we start to get an idea of what things are looking like, right? I wanna also just like put on the director's hat. And I'm gonna start being my own DP and start placing cameras and start thinking about how things appear, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. What time is it? We have a little bit of time. So there's this little clacker icon, cinematics. I'm gonna grab my Cine Camera Actor, which is basically a camera. And I can go in here and I can pilot this camera. So I can, click on the perspective and highlight this Cine Camera Actor, which I just added into my scene. And so now I'm in my camera and I can just sort of line my shot however I want to, right? I could go back to my facade views and try to match one of these, right? Again, I have reference. If I like the look of something, I can just try to replicate that. Or I could just, art direct my own scene, right? And I'm going to place my camera. And when I'm done, I can just click on this little eject button. And where's my camera? There it is. Right, there's my camera, right? Any photographers? Who knows photography? No one knows photography? You guys need to learn photography. So what cameras offer is depth of field. You guys know what depth of field is, right? So we can manipulate that in our camera here. So in our details panel, I can change this to like a DSLR. If you're a photographer, you might only shoot prime lenses, right? So you can set your lens to be a 50 mm lens or an 85 mm lens, right? And it's going to have a different effect. So there's telephoto, which is like a wide angle view, like all of your iPhones and your snapshots are going to be very telephoto. And then portrait and nature photography is going to be like 50 and up, right? And what that does is it compresses your view, right? And it also gives you greater depth of field, the ability to manipulate depth of field. So what depth of field is just our ability to change our focal distance, so our focus settings. I can debug draw, so this shows me where I'm focusing, and I can use this manual focus distance. I can click on this little eyedropper tool, and I can click on my oh, that clicked on something else, right? But you can see that now I'm focusing very close, right? And I can move my focal plane back and forth, right? And this is just to visualize what I'm focusing on. And as I focus closer, my backdrop starts to get blurred, right? And so this is a way of like framing an object of interest and blurring out the background, which can be very nice. So how does that work? Well, you might want to create your focal point to say the architecture, and then put something in the background that's out of focus, like trees and stuff like that. So you can play around with your camera settings to sort of capture that image. And again, if you have images that are already doing that, you can try to replicate them. Architecture photography tends to use a very stop-down lens, so everything is in focus. But if you're interested in film, nothing is in focus. Watch a movie and watch it carefully. You'll see so many things that are out of focus, and that the focal point is so important in how you tell like a visual story. So I want you to take advantage of that as well. So what I would do is maybe place a few cameras around where you want like a particular shot. Say you want like a hero shot from above, right? Another way I could place a camera, I think it's if I just click on this, I think I could create a camera here. So I'm going to create a Cine Camera Actor. And so now I have a camera exactly where I'm position this, right? So you can just kind of fly around, say, oh, I like this view, I like this shot, and then just create a camera there and just put as many of them as you want, right? And then we'll talk about how do we take those cameras, bring them into a sequence that allows us to capture video and movement and whatever, right? But our landscape is clearly, right? So if we go back to our reference board, we have foliage and trees and entourage that we have, right? And so just to give you a sense of where we're going with this, I exported some video, right? So that's like the same model. That's the same model with just a car that's like floating across the scene and with foliage and trees, right? And this is just using Unreal's like AVI export. If we really want to start getting sophisticated with our view, so this is what I would use to test it. So it's kind of like pixelated, it looks kind of shitty, but it gives us a real good idea of what the scene has got going for it. The lighting is all there, everything is all there, right? And when we're ready to, we can use what's called movie render queue to get something with much greater fidelity, right? And then when we want to like compose an image and just kind of use better assets. So like, for instance, the car's wheels aren't turning. It's just kind of ghostly, like moving forward. We can use the vehicle itself and like actually drive it. So now the car's wheels are actually turning and you can see when it brakes, it like sort of has the physics. So again, that's just like a subtle addition of realism. But you know, as the scene, as you look at the scene, you'll start to understand or think about like how empty it is. And one thing that's also very important is audio. And so, actually, I don't know if the sound is up on this. Can you hear that? Anyway, this one has audio. And I just downloaded some sound. Can you hear audio? Maybe not. Right, this one just has audio. You can, it's all in that folder. So if you want to listen to it or look at it, you can. This version, I added some dead leaves in the foreground. Right. This version, I added falling leaves as well. And like the car like blows the wind forward and their sound also. And then you don't even have to do photoreal. Like you can use post-processing effects to make it look like a drawing or like sort of art directed in a different way. So this is based on like trying to maybe stay in keeping with like some of the early sketches that Corb did. And so maybe I want my video to, or my, it's not a video, it's much more grand, like cinematic, right? I want my cinematic to kind of reflect maybe some of the representational intent or the representational history of the project itself. So I can start to like maybe incorporate different ways of post-processing the footage to kind of recall that, right? So there are a lot of options, right? But basically what this is that exact same scene just dressed up a little bit and just tweaked a little bit to improve it. So I think the 80% of the work is just the very rough sketch. Then the next 10% is going to be like adding entourage. I might have people walking around. I might have some sort of action, some sort of narrative, right? And then just adding details like physics or movement, wind, the trees can sway. Like you can see, in this version, right? Like I wanted to make sure that there was the leaves, the foliage was invoking fall because I liked the way the foliage looked in the reference images that I found, right? But I could have easily made it summer. I could just turn my trees from brown to green. I could also do winter, and I could do snow and sort of add piles of snow and sort of give the architecture another like partner in nature, right? And so depending on what your narrative kind of dictates or takes you, all of these options are available to you. So at this point, what I might even do is in my project, whether I'm taking the shots from my camera views right? Or I can just go in here and do high resolution screenshot and just capture that image. And in my project folder, I'll just have a very quick screenshot of that. I can then take this into Photoshop and just kind of sketch over the elements I want to add, right? Because if I just sit there and say, what do I want this scene to have? Like I could play around with it forever. But if I sketch something out and like maybe even make storyboards, just using the model as like the basis for that, I can just really clearly sketch through what those objectives are, what the visual scene or compositional objectives are. And then I can just quickly go into Unreal, say, okay, I need trees, I need people, or I need a bench, I need whatever. And I can either make or find those assets and start dropping them in. And the sooner you drop them in, the sooner you get from, oh, that's not what I wanted at all, to, okay, this is starting to really look like that, right? So you can see like this looks drastically different from this, but it has nothing to do with the model. This is the exact same model, right? It has everything to do with just the sort of visual elements, the little things that move versus not move, which could also be very distracting too. So keep that in mind. Don't overdo it. Like you have to be subtle. But I think if you establish some frames to work with, or a storyboard or a narrative, then you can kind of make the judgment of whether it's too much or too little, or where things are at, right? And so this is what, 5 seconds of footage. You guys are responsible for about 30 seconds to a minute, right? But 30 seconds can be very boring or very interesting. And I think the work that you put into kind of sketching out what your narrative is and what you want to incorporate in the scene is going to dictate whether that interest is there. And hopefully that starts to serve your production. So next week, we'll talk about adding foliage, right? And we're not going to put one thing at a time and add one thing at a time. There are procedural ways of just doing it all instantly and changing and iterating that we'll go through. And then we'll use the nanite landscape to make the landscape itself much more robust, but it's following the same principle. All you're doing is painting a surface and then using Unreal Engine to create some actual physical geometry on that landscape surface, which works very well with light, right? And so I think with that, we'll call it a day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.